Thank you so much for joining us for this first discussion panel on dissertation dilemmas. I'm here with Rup, Timmy, and Dr. Yang. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm looking forward to our conversations. A little bit about our speakers. So Rup is currently a third-year graduate student at the California School of Professional Psychology. Her interests lie in reducing mental health stigma, working with underserved communities, as well as gaining professional development. Timmy is a fourth-year graduate student at the University of San Francisco in the clinical psychology program as well. Her research interests lie in psychosocial interventions in promoting mental health for severe mentally ill populations and community interventions for underserved populations. And Dr. Yang has been a licensed psychologist since 2009 in Taiwan, and she is currently a postdoc resident at Kaiser in Santa Clara, working in the child and adolescent team. And she also has a great deal of experience working in hospital settings, both here in the US and in Taiwan. So welcome, you three. We're looking forward to speaking about dissertation. So let's go ahead and get started with some questions. So the first one is, what is your dissertation topic and what was your motivation behind choosing it?
So my dissertation is looking at African therapists and their experiences working with culturally similar and dissimilar clients. And so one of the reasons why I chose this dissertation is because throughout my graduate school career, I saw how there wasn't an emphasis on culturally diverse populations and specifically people that come from intersecting identities. So I really wanted that and focus on that for my clinical dissertation. I also just had my various clinical experiences identifying as an African-American female therapist. And so I just wanted to examine if there are any themes of convergence and divergence and just closely examine that a little bit more. So it was really my own experiences as well. And then just also throughout graduate school, just seeing the gap in literature for certain populations and wanting to examine them a little more closely.
That's wonderful. It's always great to pull in our own personal experiences into what we're passionate about in our dissertation. Dr. Yang, how about yourself?
Thank you. So for me, my dissertation topic is about the experience of parents who raise their children more than one language. So I intentionally choose this topic because that's really important for my personal life, and that's have a lot of meaning for me, like as an international student myself and potentially an immigrant. So, and I located in Bay Area. So I love diversity, I love multiculturalism topic, and I also want that makes sense for me. So when we, I think when we talk about why I choose this topic, I will talk more also why I choose this population, not only one population, because that would be easier for me to get data. That's also very realistic when you need to do a dissertation, because we have this deadline we need to get done, and then we can move on to postdoc. So that's another reason for me. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Rup?
Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. To answer Christine's question, my topic is South Asian mothers who have children with autism spectrum disorder. And my main reason for choosing this topic was I knew from a long time that I wanted to contribute back to my South Asian society, and I also wanted to work with children with special needs.
Great. Thank you so much, Rup. And I'm glad you can join us. So the next question is, I'm curious what made you all decide to pursue qualitative research versus quantitative research. And we'll start with Timmy again, if you don't mind.
So the reason why I chose qualitative is because when I was just kind of combing through the I noticed there was a lot on my population and what I wanted to examine. So I knew that it was going to be a little more explorative in nature in order to really understand the phenomena that I'm trying to look at. I also like it because I feel like it offered structure and also some freedom to kind of like do what I want and examine exactly what I'm hoping to look at. So it just made more sense given the fact that there just isn't a lot of data and studies that have been done similarly to mine. So I can just explore a little more, do my interview guide, have that be very structured, but then also just explore what's going on in the specific community of clinicians.
And your decision to pursue qualitative research versus quantitative?
I can share if that's okay.
Oh, yes.
Something very similar to Kimmy, I wanted to study my participants in depth. And on a personal note, I think maths and stats does not make sense to me. It just goes over my head. And I really wanted that in-depth experience where I can make teams and I can really sit one-on-one with my participants to understand their experiences. But on a side note, I think both methods are really good, and whatever works for you, whether you're a more of a mathematical person, then your quantitative study is your topic. And if you like more interviewing style and in-depth interviewing, that qualitative can be yours.
Great. Thank you so much. And Dr. Yang, how about yourself?
So yeah, for myself, I have experience doing a quantitative study in my master degree. So I have that experience, and for me, kind of like I want to try something different so I can gain another experience. Another reason is I also really interested in the story. And then like when I set up this topic, I really want to know if they are my client, what kind of story I will have clinically, or if that's myself in the future, how I gonna handle it. So I think it's really important for me to hear the experience in depth. So that's the reason why this time I choose doing a qualitative study.
Great. Just out of curiosity, what type of quantitative research did you do in your master's degree, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I was in the lab in Taiwan, it's pretty much like follow the topic that lab focus on. So I actually doing a study about like cockroach phobia and the emotion, like the distinction between disgust and fear. So it's so different than the study I have done for my dissertation. Yeah, so I think it's important for me, myself, this time I choose a topic I really like, because I would say it's a difficult process to get through all this academic requirement and internship and got a degree. So I want to do something I can enjoy and clinically make sense for me.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. It sounds very interesting as well. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So all of you are in very different stages of your dissertation. Can you share what has been helpful to achieve your current goal? And Ruth, maybe we'll start with you this time.
Absolutely. I am currently on my discussion section, so I finished my recruitment. And if I can be honest, I had moments in between where I felt like I would never finish my dissertation. Really down days where I was just like, why am I in this field? I'll never finish it. I'll never get my degree. And it may sound cliche, but I think all of us will get there. There is some light. We will get there. But what really helped me was having monthly or weekly goals, like this is what I want to do, and asking for help as much as I can from my chair, from my peers. And yeah, just want to say that, don't compare your progress to other people when you are at this stage.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you. How about you, Timmy?
I'm in the recruitment phase of my dissertation, and I have very feedback as Ruth as far as just like check-ins with my chair really helped. Just troubleshooting any issues I'm running into. He was really good in giving me resources, different psychologists I can looking up their work. And it was really helpful when I was feeling kind of stuck in the lit review phase, like how can I keep moving forward? And because there's just not a lot of research on my population. Pacing myself too really helped. For me personally, doing little bits every day worked for me. I know for some people, they can do huge chunks in a day and just knock that out. does not work for me. I have to pace myself. And I found like just the accumulation of efforts that really helped me get my lit review actually done. And then also just like knowing that I wanted to apply to internship and I had this date that I needed to propose by was honestly like a huge factor in like get stuff done. Like you want to go to internship, so you need to propose by this specific date.
Great. Setting little timelines for ourselves, checking in with our dissertation chairs, very, very helpful. Definitely. I feel the similar way. I have to just set little goals for myself along the way as well. How about you, Dr. Yang?
Yeah, I think they all mentioned about like important motivation, like what before the proposal defense. That's really important. Like get close relationship with your committee, get the support from them, and find a way like you guys can work comfortable with each other. And I want to mention, I think it's important to turn your stress into motivation. That will be very helpful to achieve the goal. So for example, my personal stress would be like I'm an international student. I have this finance and visa stress, like I cannot work when I'm an international student. So I have a very like big stress. I couldn't support myself if I don't have this get done, and then I cannot move on to next stage. So I think that's important. Like I can turn my stress into my own motivation and hold me through this process. And with that goal, I can divide it in some more like small goals, like, oh, if I need to get my degree, I have to do my internship. If I need to apply, there's a due date. I want to show I have already done my proposal defense. So everything I just timed backward and talk to my committee. I think there's an important timing for me. Just plan before internship started. So usually when people move to another state or city to do their internship, they gotta get away from their committee. So I think it's important to make a plan when you still have a chance and time and the mental space in your life. And then when you transition to the internship, you already have a plan. And I like to make a plan a little bit like a hand, like the goal is not that realistic. I will make the deadline a little bit earlier, the real deadline. So even I'm delayed, I'm still okay. And that's also fit my personal needs because I'm an anxious person when I'm doing that. So I feel like I have a buffer for myself. So another positive motivation for me is I really want to go to commencement with my cohort. Like that's in my mind. I want to have that moment with them. So I intentionally check up when is my last day. If I want to go to commencement, when was the last day I need to finish my final defense? And yeah, I did it, but eventually there's no commencement because of COVID, but it's still fine. Yeah, we will have that someday in person. Yeah, but that's my motivation, and this is the way it helped me through the process.
So much for sharing all that, and to reframe turning stress into motivation is really great, and it seemed to have worked out really well for you in just juggling everything related to dissertation and how it also impacts the other kind of milestones you have to meet in grad school. So that's really great. So considering all of the topics that you guys have are aimed towards a particular ethnic group, what are some tips you have for our viewers regarding planning for data collection? And Kimmy, do you want to start first this time?
I'll start. This might seem like really obvious, but like lit review, just really sifting through everything, seeing what type of data collection's been done on your population before to see if you can mimic that in any way. For me, what I did was looking at the literature, I really use that to help guide my interview guide and asking culturally relevant questions, asking culturally responsive questions to my participants. And I think consultation is key too, going to your committee members, getting their feedback, going to, even if you can, going out into the community, eliciting feedback from people just to make sure that your data collection is going to be culturally responsive to the community you're planning on studying.
Is really good advice. Staying connected with our committee members are very, very key too. They could be of huge support for us during this process. Dr. Yang, how about yourself?
That's a good question. I think about my population at one time. I'm thinking about, should I only focus on the parents who teach their children in Mandarin plus English? And then I went to my committee and they told me, yeah, that's doable. But what if I do that in another language? What if I do the interview in another language? They cannot help me because none of them understand Mandarin. And then if I translate it, it's kind of lost the meaning or important information in that. So that's one example, like communicate with your committee first. And then the second reason is when I think about it, I want to have broader vision about this topic, because if I work with this population in a Bay Area or in US in general, I want to have more broader view or perspectives from different cultural background. So I think that worked well for me, and that's also helped me to recruit the participants so much easier. If I open to all the cultural background and it's only limited people who teach their kids more than one language, it's so much easier for me to recruit my participants. And I think that's important because that's also linked to the timeline. Like if you have a really hard time to collect your data, and if you don't have solid data before move on to internship, it gonna create such huge stress on yourself during that year. It's stress for enough, like transition and moving and a new work environment. So I think that's a realistic goal and clinically making sense for me.
Thank you so much. And I'm curious, did you happen to use any translators in your dissertation process, like with data collection?
Yeah, good question. I do have that question before I even do my proposal defense. And then my committee, they strongly suggest me not to do it because it will lose those meaning, because when we do the data analysis, we want to know what's the meaning behind those words. So that's in my criteria of participant recruitment. So they need to be able to have conversational English.
Thank you so much for elaborating. Roop, how about yourself?
For me, really inspired by what Kimmy and Dr. Yang shared as well. I wish I had that advice when I was doing my recruitment, but I think COVID really affected my recruitment. I was having a hard time finding people. I had to go back to IRB and change my official criteria as well. And that was the whole moment for me where I felt like I'll never do my dissertation, but I had to rearrange a lot of things because of COVID, another stressor that was added. But I think the main thing that I learned was to have a population which is practical, which you have contacts for, which you feel like someone would be open to participating in. But I joined a lot of Facebook groups to be in touch with a lot of South Asian mothers. I'm on a lot of parenting forums, so I really had to think through where my participants would be at.
Follow-up question for you, Roop. What do you think is the best way to kind of join like some of the Facebook groups or do research on connecting with different communities for data collection?
Yeah, so there are a lot of research groups, and there are specific population groups as well, where you can just be honest. I'm in this group because I'm looking for participants. And some groups will honestly, not admit you to the group. And some groups are like, okay, we have people that are open, but just emailing, spamming, just trying out your options, I think that works in the end.
Thank you so much. The next question is if any of you have applied for scholarships regarding dissertation and how that might have been helpful. And Dr. Yang, we can start with you this time if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I did not apply for scholarship this time. So I think it's part of it like limited through my like visa or identity. I'm not citizen, so I have limited resources in terms of scholarship. But if other type of scholarship I have been applied, that's about like presentations, those like travel fund. So it's not totally related to my dissertation. So I think the other two members in the panel can provide more insight about that.
Thank you so much. Kimmy, how about yourself? Any scholarships you applied for?
I did it, so I can't on that, unfortunately. So Roop, maybe.
I'm in the same boat as them. I wish I had more knowledge, but I know there are funds out there for specific ethnic communities. But again, I need more knowledge about that, and just hope that there are funds like that.
Thank you so much. And the next question is, how do you all feel about presenting your dissertation results at conferences? And if you have already, please share a little bit about your experience. Kimmy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I would love to present my dissertation results at a conference. I feel like it's really important for clinicians to share their results, especially looking at populations that aren't typically the focus of research, and just disseminating our research and our information, and just hopefully, we can inspire someone else to maybe pick up the research or want to work with us, or do something similar. So I think it's really important for us to talk about this information in a public forum, for sure.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more. And Kimmy, I'm just curious for you, if you were to pick a conference that you would want to present your dissertation topic and the results at, which would you pick?
Oh my gosh, I do not know. There's so many to choose from. I would probably do a smaller conference at first, just because I don't have a lot of presentation experience, so something a little bit smaller. But there's so many to choose from, so that's great.
Totally fair. I would do the same. Just choose a smaller little conference before we hit the big leagues, right? Dr. Yang, how about yourselves? Have you presented at any conferences regarding your dissertation, and maybe what your experience was like and how you feel about it?
You know what? When I see this question on the list, I was like, wow, that's such a good reminder. How about present my dissertation? So I want to talk about my experience about presentation. So I really enjoy present some idea or case conceptualization or theory conceptualization in terms of the clinical experience. So usually what I have done in the graduate school in the doctoral program, that was every year we have different practicum or internship. So I will use that as a motivation that's working with different group, and then I will present one of the theoretical conceptualized poster, not a oral one. Sometimes I think that's also a good chance to do that. But if want to start it with the small, a more secure sense of it's easier and it's more one-on-one experience, that will start it with poster. But I found it very interesting. I did not do that with my dissertation, because I kind of do that every year, find different conference, match that topic. I think that's totally because I'm passionate about my dissertation topic, but I think that's all covered by the stress of the whole transition, like after graduate, after get a degree, after started a postdoc, just want to get things done. I think it's a good reminder for me as well, oh, I think I want to do it, I should do it. And then I want to echo what Kimmy just said, there's so many different conferences out there, which one should I pick up? I should think about it. Yeah, so I would say it's a good reminder for me. And I think some of my cohort, they want to publish that also in a journal, so that's a good option as well. So for that, I have one comment. So when I collect my data, my committee told me, for example, if I have this number, it's good for my dissertation. If I have a little bit more, they give me another number, it will be more, have a better potential to publish in a journal in the future. And at that time, I have to make one decision. Should I just stop there, or should I just give more? So eventually I decide based on my date of the beginning of internship. So I just do that, whatever I can do. I still meet the minimum criteria, but I'm not able to mix the maximum. But I feel like that's the decision I have made in terms of move on. So I just accept what's going on there. Yeah, but I think that's a good way to remind ourselves self-care and just do whatever we can. And the goal is very clear, you need to get a degree done, because a lot of things you couldn't do if you don't have your degree, your postdoc, your licensure, exam, everything like that. So yeah, I like this question. I think this one need even extra more motivation. And I think one of the motivation would be that would be an awesome experience, and that would be an awesome item on your CV. So I know some conference, the professor encourages to do that, present your proposal, not with your data or result. And so some people do that, so they will have that on their CV when they apply for internship or postdoc. Yeah, so that's what I get from this.
So much for that response, and it sounds like you're very mindful and thoughtful about every step of the process, and you've clearly been very successful with it. So that's really wonderful insight. Thank you. Rup, how about you?
Absolutely. Going off from what Dr. Yang said, so I haven't finished my dissertation, but I presented the literature part of my dissertation at a conference for Asian American Psychological Association. It was virtual, so it was a little bit easy and less nerve-wracking. But yeah, I think I've had always like a public fear that I don't want to share my research. And just with COVID, I was like, okay, I'll challenge myself and I'll do that. And I'm extremely happy that I did that. For CV purposes and for professional development as well. I got to connect with a lot of people as well. And I think I just want to say, like, we have to show off our hard work. I know all of us, when we're doing our thesis or dissertation, we put our blood and soul into it. So, conferences is a way where we can speak about what we're doing. It is nerve-wracking, but it gets easier once you start doing it.
It's wonderful that you've had experience presenting your literature review at a conference. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of planning for this, and maybe what tips you have for people who do want to present their dissertation topic, and any advice or suggestions you might have for them?
That's a good question. Because my dissertation was focusing on a specific ethnic minority, I looked for conferences that focus on Asian Americans or South Asians. Just to narrow down the options, as Kimmy and Dr. Yang were saying, there's so many organizations. So just narrowing down what matches with your topic and writing abstracts and giving your drafts a lot of places to just try out your options, but making your abstract very specific, writing in a very clear way, and again, consulting with people. Can you have a look at my poster? I'm going to present somewhere. So asking for help and just expanding your options, I would say.
Wonderful tips, and I'm going to take that into consideration myself. Our next question is specifically to Dr. Yang. What suggestions do you have for students who are just completing their dissertation? Since you've already done it, what are the biggest tips? You might have already mentioned it.
Yeah, I feel like I have mentioned that a little bit before. I think I want to highlight the stage after proposal defense, because probably that's a lot of people want to know, like, what's the last step and stage about dissertation. I think I would say you need to be structured when you have that plan. And it's really difficult just when you do it when you have time, and you will never have time. After clinical work, after all these requirements and exam. So I would say if you already have your data before internship, make a good plan before you get started your internship. And then like specifically, I feel the first month of internship, or for example, people will have the mindset like, oh, because I'm transition, so I'm supposed to relax a little bit or doing self-care. Of course, you have to make sure you are okay and you are capable to dealing with your work and life. But usually that's when you have the less clinical case. So even you don't feel like started, just find a time and you just get started. And sometimes the first few months, 1 or 2 months, just let your body and your mind and even your soul to get used to. You need to multitask during your internship, and then how you can handle that. So I would suggest like have very specific plan about what time you're gonna work on your dissertation in a week. Like I try to do every night and eventually not gonna work because you have so much to do, prepare for the next day, or just you need to take rest. So I eventually choose like Saturday morning, and then when I'm done, I'm free. I still have a little bit of my weekend or doing grocery or other things. So find a day or time for you, and you have to book that time. You cannot wait until you have time. And then keep connection with your cohort in your school from the same program, because when you're internship, you're kind of isolated from your program, your school. So you need to know the resources. And of course, when people talk about they already achieved their different steps, you will feel stressed, but that's all keep you move up. And then you need to exchange a lot of information, like what's the regulation about the graduate student office, and what's the last day, and what I need to sign, who I need to talk to. So keep in mind when you move on to internship, you still need to keep at least some kind of connection with your program, and keep yourself like disciplined. Talk to your I eventually use email to check in with my committee if that's possible. Like I have finished this section, or what do you feel like when I should check in with you? Oh, I want to also mention about use your like sometimes you don't have that privilege, but you can use what you have, the resources. For example, I'm an international student, so I have no family here. So I don't have the privilege with my family during Christmas. So I turn that into a chunk of time, like, okay, if I just cannot do it, I just use that for my dissertation. So think about what you have and focus on that to use the resources to support yourself through the process. So I think that's what the things I want to talk about. Yeah.
So much for that insight. And it sounded like, you were very structured, you had a plan, and you like took out time every day to kind of work on your dissertation. Do you have any tips for, let's say, for example, some people who might not be able to stick to their plan? Like, what are some tips to maybe get back on track?
I think it's important to have that something concrete so you can see. And I know that's worked really well for me because that fits my personal style. So I can totally see if people have like more freestyle, it will be difficult. And I would say the bottom line is committee chasing you to get a result or get a product that will create extra stress. So in terms of like, okay, if that's a stress for me, how about I turn that to my motivation? I don't want my committee to ask me about my progress. I will report instead of waiting. So again, I just try to fit your personal needs and style, but you have to keep in mind this is a game of like having very clear deadline and very clear requirements. So find a way to achieve that, fit your needs, and find your support. Tell your significant others is very, very important, because usually they don't understand why you don't have life, why you don't have time, why you don't have even mental space for them, family or your partners. So I think tell them ahead is very, very important. Yeah.
True. Our work in graduate school does impact the people in our support system, so it's definitely a good idea to give everyone a heads up. So we have about 5 minutes left, and my question to you all is, maybe do you have any tips for keeping up in the motivation for working on your dissertation? Maybe we already talked a little bit about this, but any specific tips for motivation? And we'll start with Timmy.
For me, what's keeping me motivated is like I always get emails from my program saying so-and-so is defending their dissertation at this time. And I'm just that these are people I've met and I've known, and they're moving along in the program and they're defending their dissertations is super motivating, because I know like I'm going to be there. So just having that in the back of my mind, super motivating. Also knowing that like it's really amazing, we're going to be adding to like this body of scientific literature that really needs like each of our respective dissertations. Like this is research that needs to be done. So knowing that one day, like other people are going to read this and maybe be inspired by it in some way, super motivating. And then dissertation, as we all know, takes up so much time. So knowing if I can just knock it out, I'll have time to do other things is super motivating for me. Internship, graduating, all that good stuff. So those are my 3 motivating factors for sure.
Motivated now after you say all that. Just like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, right? And just contributing to the body of research that is very necessary. That's very true. Thank you, Kimmy. How about for you, Roop?
Adding to what Dr. Yang and Kimmy said, I think I've shared with a lot of friends as well, just writing your ideas down. I call it word vomit, just writing what you have. Christine personally knows this because we've talked at length about this, but writing your ideas down and organizing them when you are in a more better mind space, but dedicating some time every day for dissertation, which will be very helpful in the end, as we're all hearing Dr. Yang, who's successfully completed her dissertation, and choosing a topic that you really care about, because you have to read that topic for 3 years. You'll scroll through the pages again and again. So something you're passionate about, something you won't get bored at. But yeah, dissertation is a huge step.
Yes, I could definitely relate to the word vomit, Roop. How about you, Dr. Yang? Any last minute tips you have for everyone for staying motivated?
Yeah, I think everybody talk about like big picture. I really, really like that. And it's totally just like that. You need to finish that. I want to talk the last thing I probably will say, focus on some small achievement you have every time. For example, when I think about if I send up my chapter 3 to my company, I have at least a week stress-free because they're not gonna get back to me. So that's my like small motivation, for example, in February. So, or if I submit the whole draft, I'm gonna get another week free. So keep that in mind. It's always have this back and forth, and you're gonna find this like small achievement and cheer yourself up, and that's so important. Yeah. And I also want to use my best friend Amy in the internship, her example. Like she always think about, I'm so struggle. I have young kids, only 1 or 2 years old. I don't want to sacrifice my time. Can I postpone my dissertation? But actually, she also turns her stress to motivation. Like if I move on, I can provide better resources to my daughter. I can spend more time after that. So do whatever work for you and fit your needs. And I wish everybody have a good luck with their dissertation.
Thank you so much. Those are great last words and last bit of advice for everybody working on their dissertation right now. And I hope everyone is continuing to stay motivated and getting through the challenging process a little bit at a time. Any last minute tips or any last things you want to say about dissertation before we move on to the next event for this day?
Just wanted to say thank you, Christine, for having us here. And it's really nice talking to all of you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Same here, same here.